I was a very troubled child because of my mother's schizophrenia. I would go to school and scream for help all the time. I was one of those kids that would scream, flip tables, flip chairs, and just basically was screaming for help because I hated my home situation.
Welcome everybody to the Kamerie Gibson show, where we talk about transforming our pain into power. And today I have a special guest with me here today. He goes by the name of Rich. Rich, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Richard. That's the name my mother gave me. But a lot of people call me Rich. Family call me Rick. But Beach Boy Rich is what other people call me. But just Rich is. If you want to go by Rich, you go by Rich.
Yeah, what type of work do you do? Like what space are you usually in?
I work in the film industry, so currently I do a lot of commercials. Commercials, photo stills, and not any more music videos, but I used to do a lot of music videos. I've done some television, and I never did a movie, but I worked on like a feature, like a day play. Day play mean I worked like a day or two on that. But for the most part, mostly in the commercial world, in the film industry.
What made you choose to get into that industry?
I just felt like that was the best way for me as an individual to express myself, and just in the work field. I graduated college in 2016, and I graduated with a dual major of psychology and communication, concentration in media arts. And I used my psychology degree to work with an autistic client using applied behavior analysis. And my client personally had, aggression. He would have urinary accidents whenever things weren't going his way because he was nonverbal, which obviously as a parent, that's very frustrating and hard to live with. So my job was to come in and try to make life easier for the parents. And I had to try to extinct those unwanted behaviors, which I did. But after 10 months of working with this one family, yes, I made a huge impact in their life, but it was just one family. So I was trying to figure out how can I want to make a impact to the world. So how can I reach a mass audience all at once? Because, I put in, for 10 months, six days a week, I was putting in all this work, but it was just helping just one family, which obviously, it's like a ripple effect. You help this one family, and then the butterfly effect, they help. That might change their mood, and they go out into their community, and then they change their community mood and everything, et cetera, et cetera. But that was just going to take too long. So I was like, how can I reach a bigger audience? And I'm like, the way to reach everybody is through the media. And I can't sing, or I'm not lyrically blessed to make music to reach the audience. So this is my form. This is my way of art.
And art is ultimately what brought you to my city, LA, right? Because you're from somewhere else.
I'm from Boston. Yeah, so I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. A baby city is what I like to call it. Essentially it's a city, but Boston has a ceiling, in my opinion. It's growing. I'm not trying to disrespect a city that raised me, but at the same time, when I moved to Los Angeles in 2017, when I was 23, I just saw the difference of just a place like LA, like New York, where there is no ceilings, and what you want to do, what you can do, is unlimited. Is unlimited compared to where in Boston, I just felt like there's only so much I can do eventually before I start getting bored or frustrated with my resources there. So I jumped on a plane. I found an apartment here in LA in NoHo, North Hollywood, for those who are not local. That's the Valley. And I just moved here with a suitcase and no connections, no friends, didn't know anybody here. Just said, let me just jump on this plane and see what's out there waiting for me. And still here 5 years later.
Amen. No, that's really cool. And that's really commendable. It says a lot about you, and your own tenacity. But going back to Boston having ceilings, before you made that move out here, what were some of like those feelings for you in Boston?
My feelings towards Boston or my feelings about moving to LA?
How was it growing up in Boston for you? That ultimately led you to like be like, I have to leave. Like, there's nothing for me.
Okay, so again, Boston's one of those places that you don't know. It's just like you don't know what you're in until you leave. So growing up, I was just in a majority neighborhood. I always lived in a neighborhood that was majority people that were black or people who were from the islands and or Hispanic. And like my high school, we only had two white kids, and they were just happened to be brother and sister. And I thought that was normal around the world. I just figured that's just how people are. They stick with their people. And to me, then I went to college, and then that was like a big exposure to just the white culture and the white community, and that like really pulled me out of my comfort zone. So for those 4 years, I had to learn to just adapt and grow. And then after that, I was just like, what else is out there in this world? Because here I am going to the school that's still in the same state, and that felt drastically different. And then after those 4 years in college, I went back home to Boston. I'm just looking around the city, and I'm just observing the jobs that are being offered, even just in the psychology world. When I was just kind of just thinking about going down that path, and I remember just spending hours of my summer when I first got home on Indeed and just looking at job titles and job opportunities. And obviously, there's certain jobs you just don't know, so you're kind of just tunnel vision, or your search is narrowed to what you know. But even just those options, there was nothing that was really jumping out at me that I'm like, oh, this is gonna be me. This is the job I want to do. I mean, besides applied behavior analysis job. And again, after 10 months of working that was also a part-time job technically, because my client would be in school for the first half of the day. So just being a hustler and not wanting to sit around, I went and found a job at a newspaper company working in the morning. And so I would work there in the morning and then I'd go see my client in the afternoon. And even that job, again, they offered me a full-time job, and I just didn't feel like it didn't reach my needs, or like I knew it wouldn't satisfy me. And again, I feel like those were the only options I really had in Boston, and I was like, these can't be the only options that I have, is work at a newspaper company or work with an autistic client. And I'm like, I have a psychology degree and a communication degree, and I feel like these are my only really big options in a city that's supposed to be big or not. So that's when I was like, yeah, it's time for me to go to California, go to LA in particular, and see what's out there, because these can't just be the only jobs that are offering, and they seem to be the only jobs that really jumped out at me. And like, I mean, I waited 2.5 months after I graduated college to decide on which job I wanted to accept, because yes, I was getting job offerings, but I had to go one that felt right, because I'm not the type to just rush into something. I gotta feel it, I gotta sit on it, let it marinate, and then just make the decision, rather than just jump on something because it sounds good. It needs to really feel, it has to feel good as well to me. That's just how I personally am.
What made you like so forward thinking, like for you to be working at the newspaper company and then like having the job with the autistic child?
I think because ultimately I always wanted to come to LA. When I was in college, when I was in high school, I would tell people, my name was Beachwood Rich in high school, like sophomore year, and it was always like just that Cali vibe. And even though I've never been to California, didn't know anybody in California, didn't know anybody in LA. I guess based off of the media, what I saw on TV, based off my minor research, it wasn't like I was out there researching. It was just what I saw and like what I would come across. I'm like, LA's the move, LA's the move. And it's something I always just tell me, like, LA's home, LA's home. And I don't know if that's like on a spiritual level, like an ancestral level, or like just knowing my path before it's even written. But yeah, like, to me, I always knew LA was going to be home. So when I graduated college, I just needed to get money. I just need to save money. I wanted to jump on the plane right away and come out here with my people, told me chill and save some money to come out here, which I appreciate that they did it. You know, that's why you need a village. That's why it takes a village, they say. You know, even something as small, even though it's not a small suggestion, but something simple as that of them telling you to wait a year, because that year I grew a lot as an adult. I grew closer to my family because I spent that year home, and I think it helped me on that move. So yeah, I just was so determined and like tunnel vision to get to LA that I just needed to find work that I felt fit my personality, and those were the two jobs I went with. Again, because I felt comfortable, and those are the best jobs I felt that was being offered to me based off of my degrees. And I took those two jobs, said, let me see what I can do with these two, and then boom, came to Cali with somewhat of an experience in the media world and the psychology world.
Wow, that's crazy. My best friend is actually a behavior support
behavior
specialist.
analysis. Yeah.
Yeah, so she does that like completely. Like she's now teaching people like how to like train people or something now. I don't know, but she got her.
Yeah, I mean, because technically that's what makes applied behavior analysis. So that's why I was into it at first, because essentially you could condition somebody to change their behavior. Because that's what I do. That's what I end up doing with my client. You know, he was so used to doing one thing, and I basically condition him to not continue with that unwanted behavior. So through trial and error and through, you know, positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement, when he would make these certain decisions, I was able to like shift this behavior, which to me was very interesting because, I mean, in a sense, it's not mind control, but, you know, it is a way of, it's like it's a more scientific method for like not manipulating, but again, rewiring someone's mind essentially, because it's a behavior that you always did, but now for some reason I'm able to change it. Now you're doing it a different way. And so I found it very impressive. B.F. Skinner was able to create this concept, and then people just continue to evolve with their research. And, you know, Pavlon with the dog, and, you know, there's this whole research where he rang a bell and he'll make a dog drool because he was able to connect the sound of a bell to meat, and the dog would associate the bell with the meat, so the dog would drool because the dog would want food. So that as an experiment, it blew my mind of how we're able to associate things, how you're able to just condition people with just time and effort. So I was like, yeah, this world's way bigger than me, so I gotta figure it out. And I know
I like that.
I couldn't stay in Boston to figure it out. I had to leave it.
I love that. And fast forward real quick. So were you looking for like love when you got here, when you were on like different dating apps?
Nah, when I came to LA, I used the absolute form of honestly meeting people that were going to be, meeting women that were going to be cool and just vibe out, because like I said, I didn't know anybody. And as a grown man, it's not, you don't just go around like, you know, see another grown man, but yo, you trying to be my friend, bro? You know, you trying to be my friend? It's more of a, like, I know my brother spent some time here when I first came here, and we'll talk about like how did we gain our friends as child, and it was always like you know, like that's how we get like mostly our friends, like through sports or in school, like, you know. So I ended up playing basketball up in the valley, and I met my barber, who's like one of my closest friends and someone I knew the longest here in LA. You know, I met him. He had just moved here too. Like, I cut hair. And next you know, I've known this man, shouts Calvin. I've known this man for about 5 years, you know. So it's funny how through that, but with the apps, I was just like, I just need people to hang out with the days that I'm not like, you know, working or trying to figure things out. You know, something distract me. So I'll get on the apps, and, you know, if I found a cool girl, woman, you know, I need to get better at not calling women who are over 18 girls. So if I found a cool woman to hang out with, we'll just go and kick it, you know, no expectations, just kind of let's just vibe out.
Yeah, I bring that up because that's, obviously how we met. I forgot what was the app was
Soul
called.
Swipe. Soul Swipe.
Soul Swipe. So
Classic.
no shout
Ain't
out
even
though
here
to
no more.
Soul Swipe though.
Soul
Yeah,
Swipe
like
ain't.
the black dating apps, they be burnt out. Like they be good and then they end up just
Real quick. They get a quick run. They get a quick run. I feel like that's a lot of things that's black. That's what's kind of fucked up about the world right now. It's like, they give us a run and then they kind of just fuck it. All right, that's all y'all get.
I think, yeah, definitely that's part of it. I think it also gets real ratchet and it gets really like open and it just all black people don't want the same type of black people. Like we're different,
We
Like,
are
yeah.
a big
So
spectrum. And I think sometimes people may forget that or they just don't accept that for their own personal reasons, which I can respect. Again, we're all on this earth together. So however you need to view things to help you get it, I respect it. But at the end of the day, we're all part of one race, and that's the human race. So people need to never forget that aspect as well. But again, there is difference though because yeah, we're all human race, but it's all a different experience based on who you are and your culture, your background, and everything. So can't be naive to that.
yeah, man. And I know I definitely felt like I was naive to you and your experience, like as a black person in this country. And I'm saying that because like when I first like got to know you kind of through text and stuff before we met up, because we actually ended up meeting in person at the BET experience
Experience, you heard?
a few years back. Yeah, I was with my friends and you came out there. And yeah, we didn't really talk that much, but I don't know. I don't know what kept it so just carried on. I think just being cool, being I don't know, being bold. Like I definitely feel like you're a very like expressive person, just like me, if not more than me. And I feel like you're very confident and you seem sure of yourself to me. Yeah. And I feel
Got
like
you.
once I got to hold on, I'm not done talking. And I feel like, huh?
I said I was just making a comment.
And I feel like, for the most part, like I always felt like you were somebody whose mind that I could like respect, but like in an equal type of, way. I don't know how to describe that. And like getting to know you more, like getting to know, like learn about your story a bit has even made it like much more special to like, yeah, still be in your life as a friend. Sorry, I was talking a lot and dragging it out, but I was trying to put it all in.
I appreciate
But
that.
yeah, but yeah. So when you came to LA, how did you find a place? When you came here, did you like it? Like you live in what type of neighborhood? Can you talk about that?
Okay, so I came to LA. I already had an apartment waiting for me. But since I didn't have a job, my landlord made me like double up on my safety deposit, which was cool because again, my people told me to save my money before I came out here, so I had additional money to throw it at the landlord just to get it. Cause I just needed a place, I just need something to start off with. And then and for those who are not familiar with NoHo, North Hollywood, it's kind of like a predominantly Mexican neighborhoods, essentially, and like. I'm from Boston. Like I said, Boston is systematically segregated without you even really realizing it. A lot of people stick to their people there. My people's Cape Verdeans, but I grew up in like Franklin Field, which is just predominantly Black and Hispanic. So, and when I say Hispanic, East Coast wise, we're just basically Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, and like Central Americans and Mexicans mostly live in East Boston. That's far away. That's like area of Boston I never really spent. So when I moved to North Hollywood and like all my neighbors are Mexican, I was like, okay, this is another culture shock. Just getting used to just hearing the music, playing, the neighbors, just the vibes, the friendliest people in the world. I remember one of like the earliest experience I had was obviously everyone knows about the Mexican community and their struggles to immigrate here to America and how America kind of mistreats and try to basically dehumanize the Mexicans here in America, even though we live in California, which is technically their land. But I remember one of the kids that lived across, in LA, they have a lot of apartments where you can walk upstairs, and in the apartment building, the doors are exposed outside, so you can see into people's house and everything. And my building was symmetric, so my setup is the same setup as the people across the parking lot from me. So, and I was in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I could see the people that are across the parking lot are in a 1-bedroom apartment. But in their apartment, they had 4 generations in there. They had their grandma, the parents, the kids, and then the kids' kids if they had some. And the one particularly across from me, they had that situation, and that's in a 1-bedroom apartment again. And I remember one of the kids, the youngest generation, the 4th generation, was outside playing soccer. And I was, pre-gaming, I'm a little buzz, leaving, about to get my Uber. And one of the kids said to me, like, yo, you Rich? Again, my name's Richard. So I was like, oh, how the hell do you know my name? I'm friendly, but I didn't tell nobody around there, like, my name's Richard. So I'm like, how does he know my name? And he said again, like, oh, you Rich? And I was like, what? But then I realized he was saying it because he never saw, I was technically the only one in that whole neighborhood, in that whole apartment complex, who lived alone. Everyone else kind of lived in upstairs with 2 bedrooms and downstairs with 1 bedrooms. But I was the only one that actually lived alone in my apartment. Everyone else was families living in these apartments. So to him, he figured, he thought I was rich, wealthy, because it's how do you live alone? And we're all in here. Everyone else is living living with a family in these apartments, and you're by yourself. And that really that was just a interesting moment to have. Wow, he does based off of his experience culturally, in this neighborhood, he's I never seen anybody just live alone. And that, to me, that was again another reason why I had to share stories and wanted to reach the mass audience, because again, I'm not saying I want to share his story, but it's just the idea that he saw someone living alone as a way of wealth, and not realizing that should be the norm in our world, where a 23-year-old adult wants to get their own place. That should be normal, and not a reach or someone that has to be making a lot of money. But again, right now, especially in today's economy, that's kind of difficult for someone to do. And so that was really an interesting experience. And then knowing about it's not an ice cream truck, but it's just the guy that walks around with the little bell selling tamales, all that stuff, the street vendors. I wasn't used to all that. I thought it was dope, because it's basically all right, you're not gonna let me work this job, I'm gonna find a way to get paid. And I'll tell you that Mexicans are very hustle. They'll find a way to get paid, get their money. They'll be up at 6 a.m. ringing that bell for a tamale. Yo, who's eating tamales at 6 a.m.? But they're gonna get their dollars. They're gonna get their dollars, So they're up early. They work. They're up. Their first one's up. Last one's to go to bed. Just trying to find a way to feed their family. And it's interesting. It's a very loving community. I could see why a lot of the families are family based, because you can see the love that the dad gives for their kids, and the mom, same thing. I watched the dad and mom carry book bags home for their kids. Do all this extra loving care and stuff. So it starts staying in the family. So they're definitely big family oriented culture, and so I can see why they just continue to disrespect but expand, because there's so much love. So the kids learn to love early, and they just continue to just spread that love as they get older. And yeah.
No, that's real. Like the woman in my family, my mom, she's very loving. Like they all have, over 4 kids, so yeah, it's true. Uh, I was gonna ask you though, what was your home home
Um,
life like?
okay, so for me, like growing up, from birth to 10 years old, I lived with my mother and my older brother and my little sister. And then from 10 to 18, before I went to college, I lived with my second mother, basically what I like to call my universal mother, because she technically adopted me from my mother, even though she's a family friend. But to say that she's my adopted mother will make it seem like we're disconnected or like seem distance, where in reality, I know that she was always there and always going to be part of my life. And, I think it's one of those situations where like it didn't matter where I was going to be, wherever I was born in the world, we were going to end up together, like a soul tie in a sense, but in a mother's son connection because, yeah, basically my biological mother struggles with schizophrenia and bipolar and depression. I think all those are connected. And so when I was a child, whenever my mother would be admitted to into a mental hospital, mama would watch me. And when I was 10, when I was about to turn 10, we were living in a shelter due to my mother's lack of support from the U.S. government. She was able to maintain jobs because every time she got admitted to a hospital, she'd either be gone for from 2 weeks to maybe a month. I mean, it's hard for an employer to keep her keep her position. So they would like basically release her. So there's no laws that protect people with mental health in that aspect or anything like that, and which is unfair. And it's basically they should have some sort of for protection. So based off that, my mother lose her job, and then from there we end up being homeless, and we lived in a shelter. And my mother just didn't want to raise her children in the shelter anymore, and then that's a whole story on its own. But essentially, she decided to go back to Cabo Verde, where her and my father's from, and she put me, she left my brother with his godmother, and then adopted my brother's godmother adopted him, and then my mama adopted me, and then yeah, so that kind of like shifted my home culture because I went from like being with my mom, my brother, and my sister to a whole new situation, which for better for worse, I think it was up in the air because there was times I feel like I was a very troubled child because of my mother's schizophrenia. I would go to school and scream for help all the time. I was one of those kids that would scream, flip tables, flip chairs, and just basically was screaming for help because I hated my home situation. And so I was in third grade, but I probably had a first grade reading level. I was probably on the first grade reading level and writing level because I was never in class because either suspended or in the principal's office. So, and I lacked discipline or anything like that. Like I was the kid that never did his homework. So then I went to mama's house, and her loving children were very supportive of helping raise me because mama is 60 years older than me. So I was 10 years old. Mama just had her 70th birthday party, and basically right after I shortly moved into her house. So God bless her soul for even wanting to take on responsibility of a child at 70 years old. Like she could be like, I'm done. She already had 7 kids, so it's not like it was something that she missed out on. She had 7 of them. She already went through this experience 7 times, and but so she was willing to, and that's just her children, and she had plenty of grandkids on top of all that. So for her to be willing to bring me in, and then her children accepting me as well was a blessing in disguise. Obviously at the time you don't even realize it because her 2 main children who helped raise me, Titi Mana and Uncle Joe, they both spent some time in the Army, so they're very military and authoritarian. Like my way or the highway. So essentially I went into like a boot camp right away, like fresh out. I basically got adopted to a boot camp, but again, blessed in disguise, it was something I needed to make up for those lost times that I was with my mother, where I had technically no discipline and like neglect, essentially, because based off my mother's medication, she'll sleep all day. So I was kind of just on my own, which we could talk about, like how that helped me, but slash didn't help me, because again, you learn to fend for yourself, but then you lose on certain stuff. Like I said, I was third grade, probably reading first grade reading level and writing on the first grade reading level. So I had a lot of catching up to do. So the boot camp did help me catch up to where I needed to be, essentially. I mean, not just with my people, because it was a boot camp, but the level of discipline was intense, like a boot camp, where there was a bedtime. Like I never had that in my life. I get there's a bedtime at 8:00. All the good shows and stuff come on at 8:00. So to have to go to bed at 8:00 was torturous for me for the first few years. I had a bedtime when I came home. I had to do my homework, so that taught me discipline. As soon as you get home, you just get your homework done and making my bed every day. Just, like I said, it really was a boot camp, even though there was love behind it and attention. I guess there's love and attention too in the Army, but different type. But this one was more family, because again, it wasn't like it was all. I mean, we'll go to the movies, we'll hang out and everything, but it was just essentially what I needed as a child to kind of just get me on the right path, I guess, to be who I am. So then, so that shifted my dynamics at home, because, my mom was my guardian, technically, but Tita Ma and Uncle Joe kind of, her two kids took the role as, like, mother and father figure to me. And then her other children, like Uncle Manny, which is her other son, his wife, Auntie Tammy, they played mother and father role for me as well. So, like, I had different dynamics. Because it was a big house, it was a three-family house. Different people lived in different floors. My godfather lived there as well. Uncle Tony, God rest his soul. And he was a father figure to me. And then I had a cousin there I had cousins there that played like big brother, big sister role. So I had basically a big family. I went to a big family house and just kind of just went in there and just kind of just had a different situation. But it made me who I am. It made me more, so like you said, my personality. So I guess it gave me a lot more personality, because you're going into a house with a lot of personalities, and you kind of just have to just be you. You just kind of have to be you. So it helps you. Sharpen your skills, because you couldn't be quiet in that house, and you can't just blend in, because they'll call you out or something. There's just so much going on in the house. You're gonna have to have personality, and I always had personality, but I never really showed it. But then when I was adopted and went into that house, it pulled me out. It pulled that personality was pulled out, because it's like, hey, ain't no time to be shy up in here. We got a lot of people up in here, so you better speak up.
Oh my gosh, that totally makes sense. You really are crazy. Like, oh my gosh, you're off the chain. When I look at your family though, like, okay, so for people who don't know it's not Cape Verdean. You say Cabo.
Yeah, the locals will not call it Cape. They think that's what the Portuguese call it, but the locals will call it Cabo Verde. These 10 islands off the west coast of Africa. If you believe in the Atlantic slave trade, because if you know, you know. But if you believe in the Atlantic slave trade, they use the 10 islands. They use those islands, the Cabo Verde. The Portuguese use those islands as like a hub for the Atlantic slave trade, and they'll take the West Africans, bring them to the islands, and then from there they'll disperse them based off of where they should go. Whether to America, Brazil, the Caribbeans, whatever they were sent them to. But basically that was like a hub for slaves. If other ships and sailors were going by, they'll stop on the island to see if they could buy something. Because it was easier to be in and out of an island instead of trying to dock on the actual continent, in the mainland. And then through time, after slavery was over and everything, the Portuguese workers and the West Africans would just roam the island, and then from there, people mix through generations and generations to now, where basically you have people on the spectrum of like the skin tone, where a lot of people have a lot more West African traits, and then some people who look like they're just damn near Portuguese. So, and then everyone that is mixed in between. So I guess that's why it's like Creole. because there's so much mixture. Again, like I said, other countries will stop by and mix in too, because they'll stop by and just check out things. So like there's sometimes when I visit the island, you'll see some Cape Verdeans that look Blasian, because those Asians that went there looking for slaves as well. They're not innocent as well. And so it's just a mixture of things from West Africa, you just know people are gonna have West African in them and Portuguese, just based off of the origin of the island and the purpose of the island when it first kind of was founded and what it was used for.
And how do you know what your family is, or what do y'all go off of features? Like, how does that work?
It's called features. I ain't doing that DNA. I ain't doing that DNA thing. I ain't giving them my blood, even though they probably take it an STI test. But still, I'm just speaking the truth. I can check. I mean, you don't know. They take all that blood. They take a big old tube of blood to tell me if I got gonorrhea or not. It's like
it do be biggest. It be so much blood. I'm like, damn, that's a lot.
You need all the blood to tell me if I caught something or not.
Man.
Like, again, I need to know for my personal health, but I'm not sending them none of that. But essentially, I mean, based off of my features and everything, I could tell I have a good mixture of both. I mean, but it is what it is. And it's not like I was out there choosing, not like I was looking at Allah and was like, all right, give me this and give me that. It is what it is.
No, yeah. But like, like it's different. Like it's different. But just when you were saying earlier though about you screaming in the street and your mother sleeping all day,
yeah.
How did your mother's own like struggles affect you?
It affected me drastically. As a kid, I mean, there'll be days where I'll come home and the lights are off. It's Boston, so winters were actually like really cold. It ain't LA winter, like where it's like 40 degrees and you kind of survive. It's like Boston, we get down to 0 degrees at times. But like our fall times, you come home and it gets pretty cold, and you come home and mom's sleeping all day just based off due to her medication. The house is cold, the lights are off. There might be a smell of dead rodent because there might be like a cat might have killed a mouse or something, and we're kids. I'm not picking that mouse up. What's wrong with you? So you got that. Is in the air. But as a kid, you just caught up in like play. I just want to play. I come home from school, tossing my bag, I'm just playing. I just not gonna be up for school, and so you learn to do like techniques and survival tactics. Like it's called bulashas. It's like this cracker. It's from CV. That was like dinner. Sometimes it was basically we'll put butter on like this cracker. It's like a Maria cracker for people, but like thicker, like real thicker. And we'll put that on the microwave, and then you just eat that. Drink some water and go to sleep. And then I remember my brother like learning how to you could set a timer to turn the TV on. So we would put the TV on back when it was just a 10 TV when that actually could work, But nowadays you can't even just have a TV with a 10 color a day. Like there's just more to it with technology. But back in the 90s, you could just have a TV, and Channel 2 in Boston was nothing. It wasn't no official channel, so it was a static. And we'll put the volume all the way up and put it on Channel 2 and set the timer for our alarm to wake us up for school. So we weren't sure if my mom would be up or not. And so that's how we would wake up for school a lot of the time. And as a kid, you're waking yourself up, second grade, waking yourself up, getting yourself showering, getting yourself ready for school, walking out to the school bus to catch that, make sure you're on time so you don't miss it, So these are all these decisions that a 7 and 8 year old making, at least for me, and then my brother, obviously a little older, having to be responsible for 2 younger people. Then my little sister, right. I don't think I was even aware of what was going on. She was so young. So yeah, making those decisions. And then obviously when mom had her manic episodes, there's times where, this is your mother, so you love her, but you're also aware of her situation. And there's times where we're in the car and she's speeding through the city and, having a manic episode, and she's running through red lights, she's not stopping when she should be stopping, just basically driving reckless because she's in a manic phase. And as a child, you're just in the backseat praying that she snaps out of it. And, again, it's like, as a kid, it's normal to you because that's all you see, so it's one of those, mommy's acting up again, but like you don't understand how dangerous it is until you become older, and in hindsight, you're like, wow, like I was in the car with a woman who was having a manic episode, and she was driving through the city of Boston. So it was very challenging in those moments where, again, I'll go to school because my mom was asleep, but then I'll be told at school we're going elsewhere because my mom had a manic episode and now she's admitted to the hospital, so we can't go home no more until she gets out. So then you go to school with one place being your home, and then the next few weeks something else is your home. And that was kind of like my life, based off the stories I was told like throughout my life. As a kid, my mom was admitted to hospital like as a baby, like 1 year old. That's when Mama first started watching me when I was 1, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, she's my universal mother because my biological mother just couldn't mentally, physically raise me. So like I needed that love from somewhere, and God bless Mama because she basically been there since day one to provide me with that unconditional love that if it wasn't for her, I probably would never experienced it in my whole life. So I would never even knew that level, that type of love, that type of love.
Yeah.
Really trouble child. I wouldn't even been in trouble if I didn't get that sense of love. At least I got to experience that.
Man, that is definitely a blessing. And to be honest, like, me knowing your story is definitely a reason why I definitely feel like safe, like around you, or like safe, like being vulnerable too. Because like growing up, like there weren't too many other people that like seemed to have struggles with their mother. Like, I definitely didn't have like a mother with like a known mental illness with like manic episodes, but like however, like with mine, she was just young, and just she wanted to just, like I told you, run the streets and have a good time, and she was just being selfish. And like you, I was grateful to like have my actual like blood family help raise me with my father, my grandmother, rest in peace, who passed away my freshman year in college. I don't know. I wanted to ask, did your mother's mental health like concern you about like any like mental difficulties that you may have had? Like, did you ever think like it could be something passed down onto you?
Sorry, you broke up right when you said did my mother's mental health concern me, and then it cut off.
Oh, I just said, did your mother's mental health like concern you about yours? Like, what if I end up really?
100%. Yeah, 100%. To this day, still, it's one of those things that you just keep, not even in the back of your mind, you kind of keep consciously aware of. My mother was 27, and she had 3 kids, and then that's when like she really starts like really go down this path. So prior to that, they didn't really, people said they didn't really see signs of it. So something obviously triggered her, and then my mom's mom had schizophrenia as well. So my mom was already adopted based off of the danger that she was in from her mother's schizophrenia problems. So this goes back, so it's something that my mom obviously inherited, and I'm my mother's child biologically. So like I'm consciously aware that all it takes is something to trigger me, and I could potentially go down that slippery slope. So I try to like, keep my mind healthy. I work out, became a vegetarian. I'm trying to be 100% plant-based really soon. Exercising, watching where I eat, and basically never allowing my mind to be cluttered. So with basically, essentially doing yoga, meditating, and journaling, so, and I think being an artist. So all those things. So as an artist, you're expressing yourself constantly. And so basically, I just don't allow nothing to just pile up in my mind anymore. So I'm always, if I feel a lot. So my mind feels heavy. I journal, release it. I meditate, and then constantly as a writer and director, I'm constantly writing stories. Sometimes the story is not something that I want to share to the world, but it's just something I need to get out of my mind, just because I feel it heavy on my soul, and I just don't want it to just sit there and, you know, potentially bring me down the wrong path. So I'm constantly trying to find ways to release anything that's in my mind, because, again, like I said, my mother, they said this from the signs until her mid late 20s, and then, I mean, she's 55, or she's like in her mid 50s, and she's still to this day struggles with schizophrenia and everything else. So it's it's not something I want to deal with, because there's already a lot of issues in this world. To throw that on top of it, I mean, I see what it could do based on my mother's situation.
I definitely love how spiritual you are. You posted this book one time on Instagram, Life's Companion, and I ended up getting it after. I was like, "Oh, Rich posted it. I gotta read it."
That's
and
beautiful.
Yeah, I remember on your post it actually said, like, for anyone that wants to, like, start their, like, spiritual or something journey. And I was like, okay, sounds cool. And I love it. Like, it's really cool. And, like, the journal entries or prompts are, like, very...
It's soul digging, you know, like, it allows you to really touch on parts that you didn't even know was there in your soul, because it actually questions you, like, no one asks me that, you know? And again, it's funny because it shows how much you trust yourself, because there's questions that, like, again, my boy Drew, shout out Drew, will always say, you can lie to me, but you can't lie to yourself. And again, when you're journaling, you know if you're lying when you're writing, you know if you're really telling the truth or not. And you're like, why am I? So there'll be times when you're journaling and, like, the prompt will ask you something, and you find yourself using your defense mechanism and just writing what you would tell somebody else. And you're like, I know this ain't the truth, though. So then that's when you learn to, like, let go of that shield and start to, like, allow yourself to be honest and be truthful. And you start sharing the truth in that journal. And that sometimes to a lot of people, that's the first time they ever were truthful, you know, and that's in their journal. And then once you learn to do that in your journal, then you can learn to start being truthful to other people in real life. And it's something it's a skill that you have to learn. Honestly, you know, some people are truthful naturally, but other people, based off our life experience, you just kind of learn to just shield off a lot of things in your life. So you never really was ever truthful ever. So you don't even know what's inside when people ask you. You know, we always cliche say, "How you do feeling?" "I'm good," you know, and you might even write that in your journal. "I'm good." But it's like, you know damn well you ain't good. There's so much going on. So write it. So then cause once you state, then it's like, all right, I ain't good. I had to deal with this and that. And I'm not saying go start telling everybody when they ask you how you doing and you start spilling your life to them. But at least you know in your heart, you know, I got things that I got to work on, you know. So a lot of people that first time ever being truthful about their emotions and what they're feeling internally is in their journal. So that's why I was like, at least in my experience. So that's why I wanted to share that to the world. So I'm glad you picked up that book, and I'm glad it's helping you.
No, yeah. Thank you for sharing and being who you are. I definitely feel like I like look up to you. It's kind of weird, you know. I don't know our relationship. He said that's beautiful. I'm serious.
That's touching. That is touching.
I mean, you know, yeah, and the whole age thing, but I think it's just natural to be like that. But yeah, last question for you, because I know it's been a long day. What?
I'll go all night. I would say I can't believe it's been 50 minutes already.
Are you looking at the time?
I just looked up because it's the last question. I'm like, it's already over, and I look up and it's about to be midnight.
Almost. Okay. What would you tell the younger Rich? Like, what would you tell him?
That's a very... First, I would tell him, take your time out your day to know yourself. I was really, like, focused on football, and I thought that was part of my identity. Which it was, because, I mean, I played football. I was getting recruited for football. Everyone knew me as football, but once football was taken away from me, it took me a long time to figure out who I was. I mean, here I am at 29, and I could say it took me to like 25, 26 to truly like know who I was, which is not a bad thing, but it's because I never took the time to like really sit alone and say, who am I? Who am I? Not what the world sees me as, but who am I? So it took me a while to realize I did express myself. It took a while I took a lot of reflecting to realize back in the day as a kid, what I used to do was like draw, and like I love to express myself in an artistic form. I just didn't realize it because I just got caught up in football. So stop and just know who you are, and then once you find out who you are, like put that time in to really enhance it and like sharpen up those skills that you really want to be. I said I want to be a director, so I take the time, reading books on directing. I watch my boy Lex, shout out to Lex Trust, a household name one day. He told me about DVDs and commentaries about basically what directors would speak throughout the whole movie and explain the whole process, their thinking process. So I started doing stuff like that. So things like that where you just, if this is what you want to do, then go for it, So I wanted to be a football player, so I would like work out and everything. But so basically learn who you are and then go for that. And honestly, I think everyone has to go through something in life to become who they are. So I'll just tell them, just trust life, trust the universe, just follow it. Even though it might not make sense at the time, there's going to be lessons that you need to learn. So, I mean, looking back at my life, there's plenty of situations where I was in tears, crying to myself, or just very frustrated of life and like trying to figure out why the fuck is this happening to me? Why the fuck is this happening to me? But then in hindsight, like the skills and lessons I learned from those situations has made me a better person. So as wild as it may sound, it's just like, I feel like I'll just tell myself it may not make sense at the time, but will later. So just keep a positive mindset and just keep going through the fire. If you have to go through the fire, if it feels like pain, enjoy the moments that are happy. But just what you're gonna experience is what you're gonna have to experience, and it's that simple. And that's how life is. We all are on this journey in life. We're on it together, but we all do have separate paths, and we all are gonna experience something different. But I personally think it's all for a reason. So just make the best of it and try to learn the lesson, because if you don't learn that lesson the first time, it's gonna continue to send it your way until you learn it. So you better off learning that first time and make life easier for yourself. So be consciously aware of the lessons that life is trying to throw at you, so you can learn it, so you can evolve and go through your metamorphosis and become a beautiful butterfly like you see today.
I love that. That is so beautiful. Well,
Appreciate
thank you, Rich. Thank you, Rich. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Kamerie Gibson Show. Alrighty, I'm going to stop recording.
Really appreciate you. You have a beautiful soul. You've grown so much since I met you in 2017. I'm loving your metamorphosis as well. So you became a beautiful butterfly as well. I remember meeting you in 2017, beautiful BT experience, and you were just a young woman who just out here wilding, not in a bad way, but just you was out here living, and to see your growth. You went to college, and you grew a lot during college, and then just now, even now as an artist, the way you're able to be vulnerable to the public and express yourself, you inspire me a lot. I shared a poem back in May for mental health awareness, and you inspired me because I would watch you post a lot of your poems, and your poems you would be so vulnerable, and I was like, man, that's very impressive of how she's able to just express herself to the public with no fear. So like you inspired me a lot. So like you said, I inspire you, you inspire me. With reflections of each other. So I really appreciate you, and I love this show that you're doing. So continue to do you and continue to shine in this world.